Hi, my name is Ebony Griffin. I'm the Mathematics Transformation Coach at Vanny Blanton Elementary. This is my second year coaching. I asked the teacher if she needed any help in any area, and she directed me towards differentiated instruction. This is her first year teaching third grade. She moved from pre-K to third grade, so I knew that she would have a lot of questions about content, and she directed me towards DI. During the initial observation, I saw that she had all of the structures for DI in place. She had her groups posted, her rotation chart posted, and it was easy to, facilitate the instruction within DI because those structures were in place. We looked at her item analysis report from Think8 to look at the most commonly missed questions. And we really wanted to dig deeper into the errors that students made so that they would not repeat those same mistakes. So this student was able to solve 4 correctly, which was just a multiple choice question. But question 6 was a multi-select question. And they made a few mistakes here because they missed one. So he circled 2 out of the 3 correct answer choices. What do you think, why do you think he made this mistake?
Well, I truly believe that he didn't solve all the problems, he didn't work it out. So if he had done so, then he would have found the product of 8 and 6.
Right. So what evidence would we see if students had worked out all of these problems?
The child would have been able to identify all the problems that reflect to the product of A, B, 6.
Right. So students would have gone and worked through A through E.
Right.
And you would see like an answered choice.
It would have been correct.
Exactly. And next to each selection. So that's something that we can look for moving on because a lot of them were able to solve, single step problems, but this multi-select, looking for evidence of them working through each and every item so that they can see which ones are correct or incorrect. Excavating error I kind of led her in that direction because students were making some careless mistakes as far as operations. It's not that they didn't know how to do them, but they, weren't basically attending to precision when they were doing the math. I think that students would be able to solve these questions going back into the test and making corrections and looking at their own mistakes will be definitely something that will be metacognitive. They'll be able to go back and think about their own thinking, think about what mistakes they made, and make sure that they don't make them again. So I think that our next steps would be for students to go back into the test as you have been doing, and then following that up maybe with some more questions that are similar to this. Okay. Depending on the group, we chose different problems because her lower group might have missed, a multiple choice question, and then her higher groups missed a lot of the multi-select questions. That changes everything, right? I'm not adding 5. If you were to add 5, this would be correct. But because this sign is multiplied, you need to... We had a protocol to look for while I was modeling the lesson. So if she had any questions, and basically, gave me feedback on things that she could implement that she saw from my modeling. There were a lot of aha moments that she identified when students were able to work through each and every problem, specifically identifying what type of problem it was, whether it was a multiple choice or multi-select question from keywords in the problem.
So, I want to know for the letter 8 and 6. First of all, what is the product of 8 and 6? 46, what do you think? 32, what do you think?
All students showed their work going back into the test was definitely one of the look fors that we wanted to see, that they had the opportunity to excavate errors within their own work. Another work product that we wanted to see is them practicing using the teacher toolbox, so making sure that they could translate their new understanding to new problems. And then some of those teacher toolbox lessons also required them to look at a problem and figure out what error, another student made. So they were able to kind of get an objective view and look at another student's work and figure out what error they made. So all of those products would be in the DI folder as evidence that this excavating error coaching cycle was successful. It's very interesting for students who are used to being right. A student somewhat was frustrated by the fact that he thought he knew the correct answer, but he had a misstep in his thinking. So having to go back, and that challenge of having to go back and revise. Sometimes students aren't, used to the process of math. It's not always just getting the right answer. And so he was a little bit impatient with going back and looking at his work. But he was able to do it. And then he was like, after that problem, he was like, oh, this is easy. And that process of going back allowed the next problems to be easy. When students were actually looking back at the test, it was easier for them to find mistakes because they knew that question was wrong. But applying it in new context and really checking to see that they understood the new concept came when they did the teacher toolbox, which was separate and outside of the test. So that was one, check for understanding moment. Another one will be when they take the OPM. So when they do their 10 marks assessment to see if they can apply it, one computer-based and two, the same skill on 10 new questions. So those will be two checkpoints, one with the teacher and then one that the students do independently.
I'm Peter Cedeño. I am the principal of Vanny Blanton Elementary School. Good afternoon, Ms. Griffin. So thanks for coming down. So I understand we already had our first coaching cycle with Ms. Bullock, focusing on instructional delivery, and this was a follow-up.
Yes.
So let me know, how did it go?
So following up, we did a coaching cycle focusing on a technique from the Teach Like a Champion book called Excavating Error.
Okay.
And in that, students were able to go back and look at their topic assessments and fix some mistakes that they had, and a lot of them were small mistakes. So these are their DI folders.
How far back in the assessments did you go up?
It was a recent assessment. So this topic 4 assessment they took October 3rd.
Okay.
And then last week they were going back to look for and revise some of the mistakes that they made.
Okay.
So pretty much the protocol that we followed was having the students place a sticky note next to a question that they had incorrect.
Okay.
And like this one was multiple choice. So A was modeled for them, and then they showed their work for B, C, and D. I multiplied. They were able to see some small differences between the problems and mistakes that they made. And then they were able to apply their new understanding to
my next question,
work.
have
Yeah.
they seen it applied to another or more recent assignment?
Yes, so they had different assignments based on what group they were in.
Okay.
This student was able to do these questions, which are all on the associative property following excavating the error in the topic assessment.
Okay.
So their next step would be to take an OPM on 10 marks to see how they do with the associative property, just completely independent, because while they were doing this they got some teacher feedback, but we want to see how they do independently.
What did the teacher feel about actually using this, incorporating this post-it note to work out into another assignment?
Right.
Did she feel comfortable with it?
She does. She said this is a practice that she wants to use continuously with the topic assessments, because a lot of times she feels like, okay, the topic assessment is done. Okay, we figure out what standard needs to be remediated, but we don't actually look back at the mistakes that they actually made in the topic assessments that determine that. So she wants to continue to go back into the topic assessments. And then she liked the post-it idea because it allows them to isolate. So they were able to just look at A. There's a whole bunch of, A through E, and sometimes they get overwhelmed, but on this post-it in particular, I just want you to do A. Okay, after A is done, then B. And that helped them a little bit to figure out some of their mistakes. Yep.
To the more previous topic assessments?
So
she's using this going forward.
Going forward. So they did fairly well on topic 5, so there wouldn't be too many mistakes that they would need to revise. There are some.
But nevertheless, we should be able to see this for those few that they did.
Exactly. It just probably won't take as long because they didn't make as many mistakes.
Well, when I go in now to follow up, I should be able to see then these there. So I'll make sure I look for the topic 5 assessment.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Excellent. Sounds good. So what's our plan moving forward with Ms. Bullock?
So moving forward, yes, making sure that she continues to carry out this practice in upcoming topic assessments. And then also something that I noticed that was pretty small but might make a difference is when she's writing something on the board and they're supposed to be copying it down, like how she modeled A and they were supposed to, follow along with her. Not all students were transferring what she had written to the post-it note correctly. So there's another technique in Teach Like a Champion called board equals paper that might be helpful to make sure that students, while she's modeling, are really grasping what she's saying and can duplicate it. So basically whatever she writes on the board, students have to make sure their paper mirrors what she has.
Okay. Sounds good. So what we can do is as soon as we finish our next priority coaching cycles, we can then swing around and work on that with Ms. Bullock and then in her next cycle.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I'll be up to her in class from now and follow up.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, no problem.